This is Pops going to talk to you about Civil War. It did big at the box office. A24 has spent the most money. They're getting a good return on it. It's been very hyped, been very much talked about. Going to give you my thoughts on it and really kind of get into is it kind of fits in that category. Maybe I watched it so you don't have to. Let me tell you why. Here we go. All right, I am Pops. An election year usually brings a divisive film. Little do we know. Last time it was The Hunt. This time it's Civil War. And I got to be honest, the biggest disappointment with this movie is it's pretty vanilla. It's pretty bland. It's not overtly political. And I'm not going to say it's not political. It's just we're going to get into some of those elements. But see these characters? That's it. They're on a road trip. That's the movie. The war in Civil War is very, very small, doesn't always make a lot of sense. And when it's done, I think it's done very well. I think technically a lot of the elements in this film were done well. However, you don't care. You know why you don't care? Because none of these characters are all that likable. All right, so the film was promoted with this type of image, right? An apocalyptic future with chaos everywhere. Reminds you of like Walking Dead or even The Last of Us, which was pretty recently done. But director Alex Garland really went through like delays because of the pandemic and things like that. And I feel like that this film really suffered from that. Maybe there's other versions of the script that would have been a little bit more robust or made more hardline decisions. But instead, you get something like this, and you get promotion that looks like this, the movie event of the year. And you get these like really intense graphics and things like that. But to the end of the day, what you get is you don't get a lot of this. You get a lot of them walking around, them being the press, them being the sort of I don't want to say they're not even like the stars or the antagonists. They're just the people that take us on this journey. America has a president that refused to leave office in his third term. The country is very divided. You have this faction, for some reason, is California and Texas that's allied against him. They're going to make this last stance to attack on where he's holed up in the White House. And this press group wants to get there to get this interview and quote or whatever. This is Nick Offerman as the president. And yes, he is very on the nose with President Trump. There's a lot of like little nuances, but it never goes too far. And I think they try to make random allusions to something, but they never give us enough of a timeline. Like obviously, if you have factions from Texas and California, it's taken a long time for them to get across the country. They've obviously gone through loyalist areas and states. It would be like wasteland type fights and things like that, divided factions, things like that. We don't get a good context of a lot of those kinds of things. We just get these random references. So this comes very early in the film. It's a riot around a water supply truck. We don't exactly get a lot of context, but obviously water is somewhat short where they are there in New York City. And you have Lee, who's played by Kirsten Dunst, who walks around with walking witch face, and Jesse, who idolizes her. Anyway, Lee saves her during this explosion, this terrorist attack. This bomb goes off. You have chaos that kind of breaks out a little bit, and they kind of bond over it. And then she's the main driver. So I don't understand. The actor who basically played Pablo Escobar on Narcos is her driver. He's the one who's constantly like, I can't wait to ask the president this and that, whatever. But he just drives Lee around. I have no idea why he's an on-screen persona or not, or why he's just doing all of this. Anyway, there's flirtations with this girl. She feels like she's a teenager most of the time, except they flirt less because she's supposed to be in her 20s. She never ever comes across as in her 20s. She goes on these random lectures where you're just like, oh God, please stop talking.
I didn't take a single photo. I didn't even remember I had cameras on me. Like, oh my God. Like why didn't I just tell him not?
I there he is. There's our driver. This is one of the most disturbing plot elements in the film where they come across this group who basically are cosplaying Civil War. They're dressed in plain clothes. They're going to attack people who have higher ground at like almost like a parking structure or like maybe a hotel or something. I don't know. Anyway, it all happens. And then that quick shot of him where he's like grinning, like he's enjoying all this. And I'm like, okay, hold on. I don't understand. The plainclothes guys are taking on these guys that are in fatigues and have higher ground, yet they somehow get the upper hand and get there. And you have this shot later on where he runs into like, oh, it's one of his little buddies is also there. This guy's from, he's like Hong Kong guy. He's a China guy named Tony. Yeah, lots of Chinese guy named Tony. And this is the inconsistency for me because I never ever like a character. I never really cheer or root for any of these characters. I don't understand who good guys and bad guys. They don't even have like Crips and Bloods outfits or anything like that. We can't follow who's who and why's, and we just kind of keep stumbling through the events in the country, but we don't totally get motivations. So there's a scene where they stumble across Christmas decorations. And then there's these guys staked out on the side of the road where the owner of this house is like a sniper. He's a very good shot. He's just taking people out. I don't know if he's trying to lure them in with the Christmas decorations. He's trying to distract them with the Christmas decorations. We have this brief shot where he says, I got him. It's all off camera. We don't understand what's happening. I don't know why they feel like they need to take this guy out because it's his house. Maybe I don't. It's never explained. It's just they stumble across this happening. And I think what we're going for is commentary on what would be happening during a civil war. Like, do these people have the right to take the guy out in the house? Does he have right that guy in the house has the right? I mean, I guess this is what we're supposed to be discussing.
He's losing his mind. And I'm reaping all the benefits.
I don't know who to cheer for. I don't understand motivations. I don't know what I mean. The president is just painted as a bad guy, but we only get random references to things that have happened without any context. All right, Mr. Whiteface, like poor Jesse Plemons, he always has to play like the angry white guy who's, white supreme. This has become a meme, right? This guy. And he's got this, you're an American. Well, what kind of American? And all they basically do is talk about what state they're from because they got the two Chinese guys who were there and they basically admit, I mean, he just kills them. And it's all so abrupt and strange. Again, without context, it's just so inconsistent. This scene starts to spiral out of control. And I want to get to a little bit more of that next.
It is American, 100%. That's what I'm talking about.
Cool.
There's some kind of misunderstanding here.
What?
Well, you're American, okay?
Okay.
The best part of the film is the old guy, right? He's the guy that's left of the New York Times, whatever. And he's the one trying to give them wise advice and help them. Anyway, so they go off to that shot where the Jesse Plemons guy is, right? And this guy's like, this is a bad idea. He stays behind the truck. Obviously, they're being held at gunpoint. He drives into the situation, hits them, kills the one guy.
Get in the car! Get in the car!
Anyway, there's gunfire that goes off, and this guy gets shot. He's driving. I have no idea how he gets shot because when they watch the angle of the shot, let's take a look at that for a second. Let's talk about that. So when he gets shot, the car is moving away and he's like this, and there's someone else in the seat, but he gets hit in the front seat. So it's like a magic bullet, I guess. And we never question what's happening. He gets shot, and the solution is they stop the car, pull him out, and just put him in the back and keep driving. There's no medical care. There's no inspection of the wound. There's nothing. Old guy just bleeding out in the back. And then later, there's all this emotional reaction about it. And we literally cut through a music video while he's there looking at all of this stuff. And you're like, what is happening? I don't understand why they're not taking care of their friend. Like if they care about this dude, it's like the one guy gets out, Pablo Escobar gets out of the car, the SUV, and he's like, ah, to music. And it's like, dude, you didn't help him. And to be honest, in thought, as I was thinking about the movie, he's to blame because he got drunk. He told the Asian guys where they were, which got everybody all separated, mixed up, which got him in the line with Jesse Plemons, whiteface guy, who created the conflict, created the fight. So it really goes back to drunk Pablo. It's all drunk Pablo's fault. The movie is so it's so complicated with nonsense, and it never knows how to just make certain points and decide what it wants to do. It wants to stay very generic and vanilla, quote, create conversation, and about this fantasy land that exists and doesn't exist, right? Because all about the journalists. It's about the press. There's a little speech about how objective they are or can be. And maybe photojournalists are more objective. Maybe. But reality was most of us don't care. If there was a true war like this, obviously we're talking about at least months because you're talking about this massive divide in the country. You're talking about massive instances that have happened that have separated factions, and they're negotiating with one another, like the Florida faction, and there's obviously this Texas, California. And look, They chose Texas and California because they want to do right, left. Those are two states that talk about seceding from the Union. California was trying at one point. It was kind of laughable. They were trying to restructure their entire state at one point because they wanted to try to isolate the districts in a way that would water down even their most conservative areas because they're ragingly liberal, but even that's inconsequential. There's no scenario other than that we can think of that would bond those two groups together. Okay. Uh, so what's going on? Um, I couldn't stand there's a couple moments I couldn't stand. One of them is there's a quick bonding moment, if you will, between Jesse and Lee over their parents. Their families is in Missouri and Colorado, respectively. And it's, oh, well, they just sit at home on their farm and act like none of this is going on. And at one point, there's a sequence where they drive through this town and live like nothing else is going on. And Pablo's like, hey, y'all know there's a war going on. They're like, yeah, we just try to stay out of it. All of that is mocked and belittled. And that means two things. One, they hate the fact that we don't obsess over their news, that we don't get completely bent out of shape over every little manufactured headline and clickbait and rage porn. They just don't. They can't stand it that we don't do it. That's your best way to boycott those people. It's just don't do it. The second thing is all of that is sort of a thumb down your nose look at how dare you carry on, when in fact most people are like, I can't control it, I'm going to live tomorrow, right? That this war, these politics in Washington, all these different things, to most people your life is so small in grand scheme of these things, you don't get impacted. And the real source of what people's focus wouldn't change that much. It would be more like, well, how do I get water and electricity? None of those things are addressed. Like why is there a water shortage in one scene, but they have Wi-Fi in another scene? Why is it that the people that are rural California and Missouri are living their lives like normal? And yeah, there's other areas where you have trouble driving through. It's like, okay, well, we don't know. It's never really getting to. All it is about trying to set up the final sequence. All right, when it comes to the final sequence, this shot was probably the most disturbing shot because there's not enough context to why they're using a shoulder missile launcher to destroy the monument. And it's more about symbolism. It's more about like the destruction of the infrastructure and these sort of like sacred cathedral places. Because that's the thing about people that just worship government and worship politics is they just treat all this stuff. You've heard them. It's sacred ground and it's whatever. And I'm like, why is it so much more sacred personal property? Why is it the guy that is defending his house in the one scene vilified without any context? And yet it's okay to just blow up an entire monument over here because we think that guy's bad. It's like the film just does spectacle stuff, and we're just supposed to be, it's breathtaking. Yeah, and some of these shots there are some cool shots. All of this stuff was the best part of the movie, but guess what? It's the very end of the movie. Now, I thought it was ridiculous that they let the press walk through the White House the way they did. Literally, like bullets are flying by, and they're just walking around with them. And it's not like they cleared the area yet or something like that. So my brain got distracted very early on because there's no framework of who the good guys or the bad guys are. That all they had to do was maybe add a leader of some kind, a general of these forces or something when they're at the one camp and they're going to head on to DC to say, oh, he's the guy that's going to be in charge when the president's removed or something. Like he's a better person. He knows how to bring people back together again or something. And instead, we just have more chaos that's layered on top of chaos for no reason. And you'll end up with these ridiculous scenes where it's just stuff that's happening. And it all culminates with this Lee girl passing the baton to the younger girl, Jessie, to the point where Lee saves her during that firefight and takes a bullet for her. And then she's literally like firing off camera shots of her dying and then goes on to get more pictures. I don't know what's more gratuitous about the disregard for life in this film because it's constantly throughout the film. They see people being tortured and it's like, we'll take pictures. Their friends dying in the back seat. There's one shot where she takes the picture, but then she deletes the photo. It's like, why'd you delete the photo? Like, since when do you care? Like, oh, he's off limits. we don't have any conversation on why he's off limits. We're supposed to have some sort of like, is it because you think any sense of who it is that you're attached to or what you like? This movie is such a disconjointed mess. These people that are giving it 4 stars and all that other kind of stuff, they're just sucking up for press. This movie is, I found it to be boring. I don't know what people are saying yet. I thought it was boring. I would say this is a 2-star out of 5-star film, and that is mostly off the last third of this film. It has moments I think that are there, and there's things that they could do that would make this a good film. It's just they had no desire to have uh, decisions politically to decide how they wanted to orient this film and how they wanted to come together with things. So anyway, I don't know what everybody's saying about it. I can't wait to see. I know Copa's got a review up, Culture Casino's got a review up. I can't wait to see what everybody else is saying. I just wrote these notes down when I saw it and just didn't get to a video. So I'm going to try to clean this up because I've rambled